It's time once again for Ottawa Race Weekend. Welcome to our coverage of the 10K race on this Saturday night in Ottawa. It is a cool night. It is a little bit humid. Thousands of runners are getting ready to participate in the 10K. The 5K has already been completed, the 2K as well. And there is an elite field, an impressive elite field that is at the front of the pack. And we are going to see some very strong performances tonight, especially given the weather. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Rogers TV, along with Rob Walker. I'm Mark Sutcliffe. Rob, great to be working with you again this year. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. I really enjoyed it 12 months ago, and I was just saying to you before we went on air, it didn't feel like it was a year ago. Where does the time go? But a really, really exciting prospect for the elite men and women, and I'm relieved on behalf of the athletes that it's cooled down a little bit, because the humidity over the last 36 hours has been stifling at times, but this feels like it's cooling down and just settling a little bit. We could have some fast times tonight.
All right, we'll talk about who some of the athletes are to watch tonight, but let's go over our plans this weekend for providing you coverage here on Rogers TV. Tonight, you're watching the men's and women's 10K. We're going to see the women start in about 26 minutes from now. They will start before the men. We'll explain why in a few moments. And then the men will start at 6:30. We'll start to see the lead men and women coming across the finish line just before 7 o'clock this evening. And then tomorrow, our coverage of the men's and women's marathon begins at 6:30 tomorrow morning. The race will start at 7, and then we will have a special celebration show starting at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, and you will be able to see all of those events, not just here on Rogers TV, but at runottawa.ca. Let's take a look at the route that the runners are going to be following for the 10K tonight. They will start in downtown Ottawa, travel south on Elgin Street, and then join the route along the canal, along the Queen Elizabeth Driveway, along the Rideau Canal here. Beautiful route to run in Ottawa, and they will run to Dow's Lake. This is a route that many runners take on a regular basis through the streets of Ottawa as they are training for Ottawa Race Weekend. They will cross over and then come back on the Colonel By Drive side of the Rideau Canal, and you can see they will pass the 8K mark, cross where the Queensway is, cross over, and then come into the finish on the Queen Elizabeth side. They cross over on Pretoria Bridge and then come in on the Queen Elizabeth Drive side to the finish line for all the events here where we are located, where we will be broadcasting from today and tomorrow. Here are the course records in the 10K. And, Rob, I think there are some people who are thinking that maybe these records are in jeopardy because there have been some hot nights in Ottawa. There have been some hot Saturday nights at Ottawa Race Weekend the last few years. This is not as hot as it has been.
It's not as hot in temperature, but in terms of the dynamic of the race, it could be absolutely boiling, because we've got a young Kenyan called Bernard Kimeli. Kimeli has run 27:10. He's amongst the fastest men of all time. I say men. Well, he's still just in his very early 20s. He's at the beginning of what could be a long, glittering career. And Kenyans, as you know, Mark, you've been around distance running a while, quite modest men. So when someone like Kimeli, who's not a show-off, makes noises to Manny Rodriguez, the elite race organizer who does such a good job here, along with John Halverson, I know you know both of them really well, when he says to Manny, we might have a crack at going under 27, when he says that, he must be in phenomenal shape, because the world record is 26:44. Only one man, Leonard Coman, who is the world record holder, has ever gone under 27 minutes. So Kimeli's got to be bold. He's going to have to go very hard, very early. He's going to need help because he can't run that time on his own. But if he gets it together and he's adventurous and he's ambitious, we could see a fast time here. I'm not saying there'll be a world record, but they've clearly decided to go for it, the leading Kenyans.
One of the things about world records, of course, is not just the weather but the course, and we see increasingly as it gets tougher and tougher to set a world record these days that they tend to happen on a smaller and smaller number of courses that are perfectly flat and ideally designed for world record performances.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's unlikely that we're going to see a world record. Yeah. But it's possible. We have to give Kimeli the respect that his performances thus far in his young career warrant. He's got a chance. but it's all going to depend on whether he's got the courage of his convictions and whether he really does go out very, very hard at the start. 26:44 for 10k requires a brutal pace from start to finish. I certainly think the course record's under threat with Dariba Merger 27:24.
Set in 2009, so 9 years ago now. And the women's record, 30:56, was set 3 years ago in 2015, as we showed you, by Gladys Chirono. We should talk about the gender challenge. This is one of the exciting things that has been happening at the 10K every year for the last few years now, where they start the elite women's field a few minutes before the men. They carefully calibrate the gap. And then there is a prize that is awarded to the first person to cross the finish line, whether that is male or female. So they give the women a bit of a head start based on previous times and based on some little numerical magic by Manny Rodriguez. And then they start the men, and there's kind of a chase that happens. It's actually quite exciting.
It really is, and I'd never heard of it. When I arrived last year and I started doing my homework, I was reading all these little sub-headlines about the gender gap, and I was perplexed as to what that meant. It's fantastic. Last year, Manny set it at 3 minutes 10, and the winner last year, Netzanet Gudeta, finished 8 seconds ahead of Lowell Gabri Selassie. He could see his compatriot up ahead, but just couldn't quite close her down. So that's how much Manny believes in the speed of the elite men. He wants it to be neck and neck at the finish. So rather than giving them 3:10, he's given the women 3:40, because that's how fast he believes this male field could be. He wants it dead level at the finish, and it certainly makes for an interesting climax to the race. It's something I'm very lucky. I've covered a lot of distance races in a lot of different countries and major events. I've never come across this gender gap scenario before, and it really does add a great dimension to the race at the closing stages.
And we've seen some very close finishes between the top woman and the top man in recent years, so it can be very exciting, and sometimes they get the math just right, and it can be a chase to the finish. So you've got multiple races going on at the same time. Let's take a look a little more closely now at who some of the men are in the elite race that's happening in the 10K, including some of the Canadians who are going to be running. And you mentioned Bernard Camelli. 27:10 is his personal best time. Tell us about some of these other athletes, Rob.
Yeah, well, Camelli's time was set on the roads. Berta, the 19-year-old from Ethiopia, he's got a PB of 27:08. That's on the track over 10,000 metres. Ziani has won here in Ottawa before. He was victorious in 2016. He's now a full-time athlete. Abraham Kipyatic. Well, Kipyatic is another one of the Kenyans, along with Camelli, who's based in Japan. And if Camelli is going to set a really, really quick time, he's going to need help, and I think that help might come from Abraham Kipyatic. Bernard Ngeno, he's been around a little while, despite the fact that he's only 22. Steve Boyd attempting to roll back the years in style. He's 54. We've got Kipsang Ezekiel, Evan Esselink. And I think one of the other added dimensions of this race, I know it's something that John Halverson, and you're involved with the organising committee, it's something that you guys are rightly proud of, that this doubles up as the Canadian National Championships. And that's a fantastic declaration of how important this race is. Not just for these international guys going for world records potentially, but for domestic honours as well. You've got to turn up. If you're Canadian and you want to be going home as the national champion, you have to deliver tonight. So we're going to see a fascinating race. I think the women's Canadian race will be tighter and perhaps more intriguing than the men's, but nonetheless, the likes of Steve Boyd, if he can roll back the years, Evan Esselink, he's got quite a decent CV. He's got a PB of 64.08 in the half in Houston. He was just outside the world's top 100 in the World Half Marathon Champs in Valencia in March, so he's a good athlete, an expatriate who's now proudly flying the flag for Canada. He'll fancy he can be the Canadian national champion, but no disrespect to the Canadians in the race. This is about the likes of Camelli, the former winner Ziani, and Berta and Kipyatic. Can they produce the fast time that they've promised?
Yeah, several of these athletes have gone under an hour in the half marathon. And you mentioned Steve Boyd, 54 years of age. If you add up the ages of any two of the other athletes on this list, they all add up to either 54 or less. Even if you take the next two oldest athletes on this list of elite men, the most they add up to is his age. So that shows you he's in a different, completely different age category here.
He certainly is. And when I was doing my homework on him, his PB, which is not too shabby, you can see there, 28:30, was set back in 1998, 20 years ago.
Wow.
He was second in the Ottawa Marathon in the year 2000 when he produced a time of 2 hours 17 minutes. So he's not shabby, Steve Boyd. Arguably, I'm sure, he'll probably be the first to tell you, listen, the glory days are behind me. But it's great to see him up there on the list with the young boys, half his age and less.
Mentioned elite athlete coordinator Manny Rodriguez, who for years now has been putting together this elite field, doing all kinds of incredible work as a volunteer to bring together some of the world's best athletes to compete in the 10K tonight and the marathon tomorrow at Ottawa Race Weekend. Manny Rodriguez is standing by now with our Timothy Walker.
I'm here with Manny Rodriguez. He's on the board for Ottawa Race Weekend. He's also in charge of the elites. We have something really exciting here happening with the men against the women. And you have a strong field of women this year. This could get really exciting.
It's going to be very exciting. They're very talented. With these great conditions, who knows? I think we could see 2 new course records. And even listening to some of the stories between the athletes and the coaches and stuff, and how the coaches are saying, listen, because of the Dream Team Challenge, the men cannot take it easy because it's not a race between the men. If they back off, all 8 women will beat them. So it's added a very interesting twist to it.
And just to explain the charity component for us.
So the charities have picked 4 athletes to represent them, and there's 4 charities, 4 teams, 16 athletes. And these 16 athletes, based on how they finish, win money for the charity, but they also win money for themselves. So the finishing order depends on how much money they make, regardless of what gender they are, whether they're male or female. So it's not just the winner, but all the way down from 1 to 16.
You talked about the great conditions. When we spoke yesterday, things were a little uncomfortable in terms of the weather forecast. How's it looking now as director here?
Right now it's looking really good, far better than it was earlier. I'm really liking the slightly cool breeze that's coming in. It's temperature's coming down. Hopefully the humidity comes down too. And if it does, then I really think we can see some course records.
Well, and there are a number of your elites who are after records, and they're after a bit of bragging rights because they're competing against each other. So tomorrow looks good for that, and tonight?
Yes. So for tonight, I think they're, some of these guys are really targeting sub 31, very low 27, if not under 27. And then tomorrow, if the weather holds and we can actually get it quite cool in the morning, I think those guys are looking to really try and make a statement, both the girls and the guys.
All right, well, they're starting to form up here, and the elites will go first. And then I'm always lucky if I can race the elites through the back to the finish line to get them in time. They run 10K in the time it takes me to go about 500. So thank you very much, Manny.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Okay, have fun tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy, and thank you, Manny. Once again, Manny doing a terrific job putting together the elite field. Here's a look at the women to watch in this race. We'll talk about the Canadian women in a moment. There's the potential for quite a race between Natasha Wodak and Rachel Cliff for the women's title for Canada. But let's talk about the women who are likely to be challenging the top men for this gender challenge.
Yeah, I think the favourite here is Edith Chalimo. She's, by looking at that, you're only looking at a 3-second gap between her personal best and that of Aliyah Mohammed. But when you look at the experience that Edith Chalimo has got, I think she'll be the overwhelming favourite for this one. She is one of the fastest half marathon runners in history, and that's the key to believing how fast she can run here today, because she ran through 10K en route to her half marathon PB, only 1 second slower than Gladys Chirono's course record here. So if she can run 30:56 on her way to a world-leading half marathon, then if that 10K is the finish line as opposed to halfway through her run, she really could do something very, very special. I wonder whether she'll need some help. I wonder whether she'll be a little bit conservative in the early stages, as it is a little bit humid, although it's getting cooler as the early evening draws on. For me, Chalimo is the big favourite there. Gladys Kiamani, 31:15, not as consistent as Chalimo. And then, as you've already indicated, Wodak against Cliff is a really, really interesting race. I'm up for that, and I'm not Canadian.
Yeah, and if you look at them, you've got Natasha Wodak, who has set a Canadian record in the 10,000 meters and has run a personal best time of 31:59. And then you have Rachel Cliff, who recently set the Canadian record in the half marathon, breaking Lenny Marchand's record in the half marathon. So that was just a couple of months ago. So these are two very talented runners. And look, it took a long time for Lenny Marchand to break, not for Lanny to do it, but it took a long time for any Canadian woman to break the marathon record that had been set by Sylvia Ruger many years ago. And now somebody's actually breaking a record set by Lenny Marchand in the half marathon, not the marathon, but it shows you the caliber of athlete we've got in this Canadian race.
Yeah, I think the two of them could push each other to a great performance. Really interesting. I was down commentating at the Commonwealth Games on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
Wodak came in ahead of Rachel in the 10,000 metres. Natasha was 5th. Rachel was 9th. But if you look at what Rachel's done since, PBs just a couple of weeks ago in the 5,000 metres and the 10,000 metres, plus that run just a shade outside 70 minutes, a new national record at the half marathon. Wodak had the edge and has done bigger things in terms of global championships. 16th in the world champs last year was a great run behind the Ethiopians and the Kenyans. So she has the edge at the moment, but in terms of the major championships, but what Cliff has been doing over the last couple of weeks indicates she's in really good shape, not just over the half marathon, but a lifetime best at the 5,000's coming down, the 10,000's coming down. I think she'll really fancy that this could be a night where she beats Natasha and becomes the national champion.
There's a look at some of the thousands of runners who are getting ready for the 10K. We're going to see the elite women start in about 9 minutes from now, and then the men will start just 3 minutes and 40 seconds afterwards. Let's hear from Rachel Cliff. She had a chance to speak to us before the race got underway.
Rachel, I mean, first of all, I mean, you know, the Canadian, are you feeling the pressure right now? I mean, there's a lot of expectation for the championship.
No more than any other race. I mean, your goal is always just to do the best on the day, and you can't really get distracted by other people's expectations.
But, you know, the expectations are pretty high because you're on fire right now, right? And this is after you finish your master's degree.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm really enjoying I feel like I'm on an upward swing, and it's fun to have opportunities like this to take advantage of that.
Are you concerned at all about the weather?
If it's hot for everyone. I mean, I'd like it to be cool. That makes it a more fun race. It makes it easier to run fast, and it just makes it more comfortable during. But if it's hot for all my competitors too. So.
The other women racing against you, do you pay attention during the race? Do they drive you, or do you just get into your own timing pace?
It's a combination. It definitely helps to feed off other people. So if you're in a good field, it can pull you to a fast time, but you have to be aware of what your own limitations are as an athlete. So you do have to be aware of your own plan at the same time and how your body's feeling.
What is your plan tomorrow? Win?
I mean, I'd like to defend the national title, and Natasha's also on fire. So, the charity challenge makes it fun too. The higher I can place for that charity, I think it would be really fun. So, those are kind of my goals.
Thank you very much. Have fun.
Thank you.
Great to hear what Rachel Cliff has to say. Rob and I are very pleased to be joined by three-time Canadian Olympian Eric Gillis for our coverage of the 10K tonight on Rogers TV. Eric, welcome. Great to see you.
Thank you, Mark. Nice to be here.
And you know this course. You know this race. You've done it probably 7 or 8 times, I think, over the last 10, 12 years, right?
Yeah, it's hard to count now. There are quite a few times.
Yeah. And you also are coaching an athlete who's going to be in the race tonight.
That's right. I've got my coach's hat on, and at St. FX now I'm the head coach there, and Angus Rawling. He'll be up there in the mix for the Canadian title.
Okay, right on. And how has that been going for you as the coach at St. FX?
Lots of new, and it's all been good.
Yeah.
I've been really enjoying that new experience, and back in my hometown, my alma mater, and it's a big relief to now get in the seat and really start programming.
Good for you. And tell us about this event and this course, because I think one of the factors is always the course if we're talking about setting any kinds of records or having anyone turn in a fast time.
This course is, I've run a lot of 10Ks on the road, and this is my favorite course. It's flat, it's good spectators with good atmosphere with a lot of the racers that are participating tomorrow coming out and watching, and really it sets up well for personal best times.
And I'm interested to get your opinion on the likes of Bernard Kimeli. Now, we know he's got a PB of 27.10. A lot of people are feeling optimistic that he could produce a very, very quick time, but he's going to struggle, surely, Eric, to do that on his own. He needs someone else to be brave and bold and help him with those really fast early kilometres if he's to stand any chance of going under 27.
Yeah, so we were doing the math earlier, and those first few kilometers, I mean, it's quick to average that kind of pace out here. And what he does have in his favor, if he gets off to a quick pace, is usually with this course, the winds that are in our face on the way home, the last 5 kilometers after the turnaround. And today, there's not much wind out there at all.
All right, let's take a look at some of the Canadian men who will be competing for the national title at the 10K tonight in Ottawa. And you can see the list of them coming from as far away as Nova Scotia and as close as this part of Ontario. So quite a list, and some good times in that group. Some of those times going back a few years could have been a course record on this course before the new record was set in 2009 by Dariba Murga. Anybody, Eric, that, obviously you have your own horse in this race, but is there anybody else that you would be suggesting we keep an eye on?
My former training partner when I was training in Guelph, Evan Esselink, he's got a quick half marathon time under his belt. He was a good NCAA runner. I would put some weight on him, and Sergio, who also is in the U Sports and was competing against Angus this past year, he's a strong runner.
All right, let's take a look at the elite Canadian women who will be competing for the national title tonight. We mentioned, of course, Natasha Wodak and Rachel Cliff. And are there other names on this list, Eric, that stand out to you?
Victoria Coates, she's been running strong of late, and a Masters runner, Lindsay Tessier, she's really come on the last couple of years and produced some good runs after getting to the next level with being in elite fields the past couple of years.
Walk us through what you experience in a 10K race, because in my experience as an amateur runner, it is like no other race in the sense that you feel the agony of racing for a long period of time. You have to go hard in a 10K. You cannot hold back like you would in a half marathon or a marathon, and it's not over as quickly as a 5K. So it's kind of in that sweet spot of being a very uncomfortable run.
Well, I go back to my experience on the track. I've done a few 10,000 meters on the track, and really that's the loneliest race out there, is because there's nowhere to hide. You're out there for 25 laps, and if you take that type, when you run well, it goes great. You have a good time under your belt and a good experience, and you stay on it the whole race. So there's no laps that are you can't take any laps easy. So if you bring that mentality out to the 10K on the roads, and you have no 400-meter sections that are down, then you can run a good race out here too. But it does seem like a long race, and it does seem like a big challenge when you're on the start line.
Yeah, a lot of pain, right? A lot of discomfort.
A lot of pain, and it's especially towards that 7-kilometer mark when you feel like you've been out there a while. And there's a nice big long straightaway with the last couple of kilometers here, and it feels like a long couple of kilometers, but you know that finish line is close.
Yeah, but that's the point. That's around 7 or 8K, I know, for a lot of athletes, where the finish line still feels far away. When you're at 9K, you kind of feel like, okay, I can just hang on and get this done. When you're at 7K and it's hurting, you feel like, my goodness, am I going to be able to sustain this?
I like Ottawa because the crowds get better and better as you get closer to the finish line, so that helps. Yeah. It's helped me in the past.
All right, we are really just a couple minutes away now from the start of the women's elite race here at the Ottawa 10K. Again, the women will start 3 minutes and 40 seconds before the men, and then we'll be able to cover their race for a few minutes, and then we'll start to show you both the women and the men on the course at the same time. We'll also be tracking the top Canadian men and women in the field as well, and then we'll start to see the gap narrowing between the lead men and the lead women, but it won't be until, usually, Rob, maybe the final few hundred meters that we'll know whether it's going to be close or not.
Without any shadow of a doubt, and that's what Manny wants. He wants it to be close. He wants it to go right the way to the line. Last year, only 8 seconds separated the first woman and the first man. He came agonisingly close, Lul Gabri Selassie. They're really going to have to go some, though, because this year it's not 3:10, it's 3:40, another half minute to make up.
Yeah. Eric, what do you think about the weather conditions for tonight?
For 10K, I think they're good. If you need a little splash of water, there'll be some out there, but I think most runners will feel like these are conditions to run well in, run a fast time.
There is a little sunshine over some parts of the course. It's been overcast, and I should point out that the weather forecast a few days ago was actually for a lot more rain this weekend, tonight and tomorrow, for the 10K and the marathon. We're about to get underway. Here we go in the women's 10K at Ottawa Race Weekend. The elite women are underway, making a turn onto Elgin Street now, and very soon they'll be turning again and heading towards the Rideau Canal, where they will travel along the Queen Elizabeth driveway. It's been hotter than this on Saturday night of race weekend in Ottawa. You've run in some hot conditions here before, Eric.
Yeah, when the sun's not out, as it's not really right now, that helps a lot. You don't get the radiant heat on you.
Quite a nice crowd out. The weather, of course, has an impact on that as well. Eric, you and I were just in Boston a few weeks ago, running the marathon there, and the Boston crowds are so wonderful and supportive, and on that particular day when the weather was miserable, I was amazed there was anyone out at all, but the crowds were not as big as they have been for other Boston marathons on nicer days, so the weather is certainly a factor in terms of crowd support.
And that was a total contrast to London, which we had just about the hottest London marathon on record.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely packed. People going out, having a few pints, getting involved in the spirit of the race. It's a really well-supported event, even in the rain usually. But in those blistering conditions a month or so ago, we had hundreds of thousands on the streets of the capital. But this is a fantastically well-supported race, this 10K. There can't be many 10K road races around the world that have more spectators than this. That was a brilliant sight. When they turned left past the town hall, you've got 10 deep on both sides of the road. Must give you a great lift in the early stages.
I mean, this whole event, it's a real race weekend, and I think that's what's unique about the Ottawa Race Weekend, is that it's a 2-day event, and the Sunday athletes that are racing get into the Saturday races on Saturday night, and we enjoy it as athletes, and now as a spectator, I'm enjoying it.
So you can see Gladys Kimena, who is in the blue clothing in the center of your screen right now. She is leading the way right now. There are a few other athletes who are keeping with her, but already it's down to a small handful of runners from very early on, that group of maybe 10 or 20 runners. It's down to maybe 6 that are at the front of the pack here, Rob.
Yes, they're clearly not hanging around. There's Chalimo just at the back of that group. We've got a couple of monitors. There's Chalimo just in the center of your picture there, running along in 4th place with Angela Tanui just to her left-hand side, to our right. So they're really deciding to have a go here. Gladys Kimena, 31:15. She won the Paderborn 10K last year. She's part of the Run Czech group. There's a really vibrant distance running community in the Czech Republic. She's one of them. Trains with Vivian Chariot, who won the London Marathon in fine style a month or so ago in those brutal conditions. So she's clearly feeling confident, but already, as you said, Mark, we have a group of 4, and then 3 or 4 meters back to 3 trying to tag onto the back. So that tells you that this could be fast, and we'll be watching out for those kilometer splits as and when we get close.
That lead group of 4 runners appears to be Edith Chalimo, Gladys Kimena, Alia Mohammed, and Angela Tanui in that lead group. And now we see the men getting underway along with the rest of the field. So The elite men are at the front of this huge group of runners, thousands and thousands of runners, people who have been training for weeks to be part of the 10K at Ottawa Race Weekend. Some very inspiring stories of people who have overcome incredible odds, illnesses, injuries, people who are raising money for charity at this year's event. Some very inspiring runners in this group of several thousand who are participating in the 10K at Ottawa Race Weekend. And look, that looks like a really strong pace that's being set right off the bat. You don't normally see the effort. Sometimes among the elite men, particularly the African runners, it looks so effortless, but we're seeing some real movement here at the front of the pack.
Well, you don't often see a distance race, albeit 10K, as opposed to a marathon, where they are single file right from the very beginning.
And that's Bernard Nagano right at the front of the pack.
It is, and I think alongside him, or just behind him, is Abraham Kipyatic. Yep. So those are the first two, and we'll be watching to see whether Bernard Kameli closes that gap down. Well, we said that Kameli couldn't do it all on his own, and my goodness me, the gauntlet has been laid down in the early stages here by Bernard Nagano. And Gano's PB is 27:45, so he's some way shy of the likes of Berta, the Ethiopian, and Kameli, the man who's been giving it the big talk about running sub 27. It's very unusual to see two men off the front this early with less than 2 minutes run.
Yeah. Only now 2 minutes into this race, and already two athletes are at the front, and you can see many other athletes are still crossing the start line of the Ottawa 10K. Eric, are you surprised to see two runners breaking away that quickly?
When it's always interesting when you have many reasons to run the race, and they have the time, they have the placing, they have the team challenge, they have the gender challenge. So I think we're seeing that out there, that they're going for time right now. They're thinking that tonight's the night to run fast.
And talk a little bit about the psychology of this, because I think to non-runners and even to some amateur runners, if you have the capacity to put in a certain time, why does it matter whether you're running with somebody else? But it does. It does. That is a factor, and it's hard to run a consistent pace by yourself and a fast pace by yourself without others being part of the mix, right?
Yeah, you know, when you have someone else there to help you out with the pacing, it takes a little bit of energy that normally we go in towards, am I on pace, and just to follow them for a little bit, take a break from thinking about it, and just physically run. And then you can share some of that work. So, you know, you hear a lot of people talk about racing is mental, and that's one part where you can get a break from mentally, pushing out there.
And look, you can see that Nagano is now by himself at the front of the pack. There are other athletes right behind him, including Abraham Kipyatic, but he's by himself at the front of the pack with a little bit of a gap, a few meters there. You saw that just a moment ago when we had the split screen, that the group of 4 women continues to lead in the 10K. They've stuck together as a group, those 4 athletes: Edith Chalemo, Gladys Kamena, Alia Mohammed, and Angela Chinui. But the men, it's being led right now by Bernard Nagano. And this is one of those questions you always ask the question at this point, did he go out too soon? Can he maintain this pace, or is it going to fall apart later on in the race and others will catch up with him?
It looks like Rachel Cliff is hanging on to the back of the chase pack of a couple, 2 or 3 runners behind those front 4. So that's a strong start for her.
Yeah, she's running so well, having broken her 5 and 10,000 meter PBs in recent weeks. And we were talking just before we went on air about that great half marathon PB and national record, just a shade outside 70 minutes. But that is so bold from Bernard Nagano. And actually, compared to some of the other Kenyans that you watch, he has quite an ungainly style, doesn't he? It's not as smooth as you see from some of the other Kenyans. It looks a little bit awkward, and his stride is very short.
He's doing a bit of rocking, which is not the most efficient, but it's working for him right now.
but I can't help feeling that he's just gone too hard. He's very young and he's very talented. He's at the beginning of his road racing journey, coached by Paul Koech, the third fastest steeplechaser in history, a fantastic athlete. So, he's got all the potential, but he's very inexperienced in contrast to some of the men just behind him. He really has put the hammer down very, very early on, and you can see a group of 4 just beginning to gather behind him. From a bravery point of view, you always want to see this kind of bold tactic rewarded. Long way to go here, though, and I just hope he's saved something for the last couple of K.
And Eric, if you're in that next group of athletes, what are you thinking as you see Ngano ahead of you by 10 or 20 meters?
They know who he is, and they know that they want to keep him in sight, and they're probably using him for a bit of pacing. But they're gonna be okay with giving him a bit of room. They have a pack to run with, and they're gonna hopefully roll. Like, they're hoping that they'll catch up to him in the next couple kilometers.
There is a bit of a breeze tonight, which can have a cooling effect. I don't think the wind's too strong, but you mentioned before, Eric, that often that breeze is in your face at the end of the race. It feels like here at the finish line, the breeze will be behind the runners, at least the breeze that I'm feeling right now.
That would be a treat. It would only give the runners an extra bit of encouragement once they, if they are feeling a bit of headwind right now and they make the turn and get that tailwind. It'll certainly help them.
All right, so we have Bernard Ngano of Kenya leading the men's field in the 10K. A group of 4 women leading the women's elite race. Remember, the elite women started 3 minutes and 40 seconds before the men. We're going to see if Ngano and the other men can catch up to this group of 4 runners. And you can see that in the blue, in the middle of your screen, is Gladys Kamena. On the left of your screen is Alia Mohammed. And is that Rachel Cliff in the background behind them?
I believe so, and I believe it's Laura Thweet from the United States that she is running with. And that's great for Rachel to have somebody to run with back there. And as a chase pack, they are certainly using the front runners, and it's impressive that they're not getting too far ahead.
I'm assuming it is Rachel Cliff because there's a bicycle there, and there would be a bike following the top Canadian woman.
Okay.
So I'm thinking that's what's going on there. It's obviously difficult for us to see because she's in a group behind the other runners. But that would explain why there's somebody on a bicycle so close by. So there are the lead women. And you can see here, Rob, the running style that we're used to seeing in the African athletes who are at the front of the pack. And now, look, the gap is already closed on Ngano as we go back to the men.
Yeah, the 4 women looked fairly comfortable there, and they'll have to work together. Ngano has used up a lot of energy there going off the front. And actually, I noticed that he was quite slow to move across to the other side of the road when the course just changed direction a little bit. There's Kameli right at the front,
and Berta.
So Kameli,
and you can see them passing some of the women who started 3 minutes and 40 seconds before them. Some of the basically the back of the pack of the elite women. The men have already passed now, just almost 9 minutes into the race. But the lead women are well ahead of them still at this point.
I think Ngano may well have used unnecessary amounts of energy there. Certainly, you'd be feeling more comfortable if you were Bernard Kameli, who's been running a little more steadily, 10-15 meters or so behind. Still a long way to go. But Ngano, well, he's gone to the front again. He's decided to take it on again. Usually, Eric, when someone has a lead, they get closed down, you never see them again, or they sit in the pack metaphorically licking their wounds. But he's clearly decided he's going to try and boss this race, and he's tried to go back to the front again.
If it's in your head, you like running out front, and you have that opportunity, and it's only a couple more steps to speed up to be in the front, then you do that as a runner. I mean, for myself, I wouldn't mind tucking in there for a little bit.
And that looks to me, Mark, as though it may well be Ziani, the former champion, who's up on Kameli's shoulder. Very, very good athlete.
Yeah, there's 5 men there. The 3 at the front are Ngano, Kameli, and Berta. And it's hard to tell who's in behind them there. But we'll figure that out in the next few minutes. Meanwhile, still a group of 4 women. It looked as they came through the water station like it had broken up a bit, but that was just because they were on different sides of the course as they took on some nutrition. Eric, do you typically take in any water when you're running a 10K? I know there are some athletes who don't even bother because they're only going to be out there for 30-35 minutes.
When it's warm like this, I find my throat gets a little dry, so I'll take some water just to splash some water on my face and drink just a little bit. But I'm not looking to get any fluids in.
So it's not about actually processing anything. It's just about...
No, they all have enough fluids that they've consumed before the race to get them to the finish line. It's more about a comfort and maybe getting a little refreshed with some water.
So it looks like 2 of the men, Berta and Kimeli, are moving to the front here. But Ngeno is hanging on. Or trying to, anyway.
Yeah, these 2 now look as though they're set for a battle royal as they edge their way towards, slowly and surely, the halfway stage. Berta is a great athlete. Last year he ran the World Championship 10,000 metres and finished 10th. That was the 11th fastest time in history by a junior athlete. He's also run inside the hour for the half marathon. So both Berta, the sub 60-minute half marathon runner, and Kimeli, who's also run a 59.47, those 2, the class in the field, now that the heroics of Ngeno seem to have subsided, those 2 turning that into a big duel. And we have movement here in this women's race as they edge towards the halfway stage. Suddenly 4 have become 2.5 because we've got a leading duo, and the 3rd athlete has allowed a couple of meters to grow and needs to work very hard to stay on top.
The women are crossing the Bronson Avenue Bridge. They will turn back down onto the route alongside the Rideau Canal here in Ottawa in just a moment. And they will be on Colonel By Drive as they head back towards downtown Ottawa and towards the finish line. Meanwhile, you can see the elite men now are turning off Queen Elizabeth Drive and are heading towards Bronson as well. They're still several hundred meters behind, but closing the gap on the lead women.
They seem to be pulling away from Ngeno as well, as we watch 1 or 2 of the elite women beginning to get reeled in from that 3-minute 40 head start. Third athlete here, just about hanging on, but she cannot afford that gap to grow any bigger. It's that old elastic band metaphor, isn't it, from Bannister and Landy in the Commonwealth Games back in the 50s.
And you can see the gap is growing a little bit. It is Gladys Kamena who's at the back there. I think that's Alia Mohammed on the right. And I believe it is Edith Chilimo on the left.
So all of a sudden, we have 2 leading the women's race and 2 leading the men's.
You can see the men are on the bridge now, where we just saw the lead women a couple of minutes ago. So the gap started out at 3 minutes and 40 seconds. It's a lot less than that now.
Berta is the taller of the 2 figures on the left. The Ethiopian, still just a teenager. Second in Ethiopian national championships over 10,000 meters on the track. So his speed is looking good as he heads towards the track season. Be fascinating to see how he goes here against Kimeli. He has run 27.08, Berta, but it was on the track in that scorching 10,000 meter final in London last year. He's yet to replicate that kind of time on the roads.
You can see the men continue to pass more and more of the elite women. Eric, what do you think of this gender challenge and the added dynamic that it creates?
So right now, everybody we're watching, with it being a scoring on their team, they're all running for placing right now. So it adds extra incentive for each one. They always want to place well out there, but now they're running for their team as well. So even if they're not having the race that they had really hoped for, they're still on part of a team, and their score counts. So they'll be looking behind them a little bit more today, I think.
Edith Chalimo and Alia Mohammed are the leaders on the women's side. And it is Bernard Kimeli and Damlak Berta leading on the men's side.
Kamena now has been dropped. She hasn't been completely isolated yet, but that is going to take a massive comeback for her to close that gap, because the momentum is moving away from her and moving towards the two women up ahead on the course. Chalimo would arguably be the favourite out of these two, especially when you bear in mind how fast she ran through 10K en route to one of the fastest half marathons we've ever seen. But fair play to Alia Mohammed, Asian Games champion 4 years ago. She's Ethiopian, but she represents the United Arab Emirates, as we see so often. Athletes swapping passports, although the president of the IAAF, Sebastian Coe, is supposedly clamping down on that a little bit. However, she still lives in Ethiopia, but she does represent the United Arab Emirates. But Chalimo tucking in behind her at the moment.
It looks like Canadian Rachel Cliff and then American Laura Thweet are in 4th and 5th right now. So if they are able to make up a little bit more ground, they could potentially move into the medals.
Eric, would you rather be chasing or feeling the heat of runners coming up from behind you in this sort of gender gap kind of race?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably chasing a bit more. I can gauge where, by passing some of the women, where some of the women are in the rest of the field. So, if these women do pull it off to finish ahead of the men, give them full credit for having really nobody ahead of them to keep their eyes on.
I suspect most people would give the same answer, just because you know what you're dealing with when you're chasing. When you're running at the front and you know that somebody started 3 minutes and 40 seconds behind you, you don't know. Are they having a great race? Do I push hard and try to hold them off, and then maybe I blow up in the final kilometer, or do I hold it steady and then discover I should have gone harder? It's too many unknowns.
The caveat to that is that the women do get 3 minutes and 40 seconds, which in my opinion is a lot of time. So the guys are going to have to stay on it. So maybe the guys will have to work harder in terms of running faster to stay ahead. But I think the women have a tougher job being in front mentally.
Well, you can hear the crowd support.
Yeah, they've added half a minute to the gap that the men have to close down. You could just tell Kimeli, the men on the left of picture, women on the right, Chalimo with Mohammed. Just a brief flash there of 15:33, the time for the leading women at halfway. So just around about the 31-minute mark, which would have them just outside Gladys Chirono's long-standing course record of 30:56. So they do have the potential, if those times that we saw briefly were accurate at 15:33, there they are again, they do potentially stand a chance of taking that course record belonging to Gladys Chirono, but it's going to need to be a really solid second half of the race.
So you can see at 5K, Gladys Kamena was with Chalimo and Mohammed. She is not anymore. She has dropped back, and it is just Chalimo and Mohammed at the front of the race. They seem for now content to be running together. We'll see whether one of them makes a break as we get deeper into the race now.
You see Rachel Cliff's 5K split there, 15:46. That's on a very, very quick pace. That's 31:32 pace, which would be, I believe, a national record on the roads.
So a minute faster than her personal best.
Yeah, so very, very, very quick.
Yeah, minute's a long time in the 10K.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll see if she can maintain that.
It's not easy to run faster on the roads than on the track, and that would be faster than Rachel has run on the track as well.
Yeah, she ran 31:56, I think, for a PB in Palo Alto at the start of May. So she really is running well at the moment. And there'll be high hopes amongst the Canadians watching that she can keep that going. Now, a breakaway here. And this is surprising. This is Andalak Berta, who's moved ahead of Bernard Camelli. Camelli has been dropped instantly by this injection of pace. And Berta, still just a teenager, only just 19 years of age, second in the Delhi half marathon. I was there commentating on that race. It was a brilliant run for 59:51 in typically sweltering conditions in Delhi. He has pulled away, and quite emphatically, I think, considering the stage of race we're at. And he's left Camelli with some questions to answer. And at the moment, the man who was talking about running sub-27 before the race began is not finding the answers. It's the Ethiopian teenager in the driving seat here.
And very quickly, Berta has put some distance between himself and Camelli at the front of the men's race in the Ottawa 10K. At the same time, we've got a race between two women, and it looks like Alia Mohammed has gone a little bit in front in the women's race of Edith Chalimo. We'll show you that in a moment, but that's quite a gap that has opened up in a very short period of time there.
Yeah, it really is.
Here's an opportunity to see not just the lead man, the two lead women, but also the lead Canadian in the race.
I think that singlet might be deceiving the cameraman, because Bernard there is wearing a Canadian singlet, but he's not Canadian. He's Kenyan. So,
okay.
Yeah, I believe he just picked that singlet up yesterday, is what I heard his roommate tell me. He wanted to wear a Canadian singlet running in Canada.
Well, it certainly means he'll get plenty of support when he heads towards the finish line.
That's what I was thinking, yes.
Not a bad tactic.
Yep.
So there is Andamlak Berta, 19-year-old Ethiopian, who is at the front of the men's race.
This is a really good move from Berta if he can keep this going. We've seen Ngeno be dispatched after his really, really fast early pace. But the surprising factor here is that Bernard Camelli, the man who was running alongside Berta once they'd reeled in Ngeno, the surprising thing is that he's been dropped this quickly.
So it looks like the top male is catching up to Rachel and Laura.
There you go.
Lead, and that means he's getting very close to the lead female.
Yeah, in fact, there you can see behind the lead women, you can see the truck that is preceding the lead men. So he is closing the gap very quickly. And
Rachel is looking strong on the camera there, and there's third place on the women's side.
Gladys Kimena is now in the sights of Andamlak Berta. And another factor here, Eric, if this was a single-sex race, Berta wouldn't have anybody to focus on. I mean, obviously, the prospect of winning this gold label 10K here in Ottawa would be a huge prize, but it's quite useful for him that having gone to the front, he's got an opportunity
Absolutely,
to reel
Rob.
in the athletes up ahead.
Definitely, that helps a lot.
Alia Mohammed has broken away a little bit from Edith Chalimo in the women's race, with Andamlak Berta approaching both of them. He's passed every other elite woman except these two runners, and you can see Mohammed looking over her shoulder to see what the distance is between her and Chalima, and perhaps even wondering, where's the lead man in this race? Is he closing in on me? Just a few minutes left now.
Oh, look at the cadence of Berta. He's really accelerating up this hill. He's moving away from Kimena, who's in third place in the women's race, but perhaps for not too much longer, with the likes of Rachel Cliff trying to close her down. But Berta's really going for this.
He knows he has the men's title, and he's now working extra hard to get the overall title.
We're going to know all the answers in the next 3 or 4 minutes as the lead athletes head towards the finish line in the Ottawa 10K.
Well, this is the kind of finish that all of you guys who are involved in the race wanted. It's IAAF gold label status. It's one of only 4 10Ks in the world to have this status, and one of the reasons is that the organisers worked so hard, and And the likes of Manny Rodriguez put so many weeks and hours as a volunteer into making sure these races are absorbing right the way to the end, and it certainly looks as though that's going to be the case again this year.
Looks like we now have a camera on the lead Canadian, which is Kevin Blackney.
Okay, and we can just see in the sights of Andam Lac Berta the number 2 woman in the race, Edith Chilimo. So he's going to be very soon closing in on Chilimo and then on Alia Mohammed, who is the lead woman.
This is a good run from Mohammed. Her personal best, 32.48. If she can keep this going, it would be one of the biggest wins of her career. And I don't say that lightly, bearing in mind she won the Asian Games Championship over 10,000 meters on the track 4 years ago. There are some big scalps here, most notably Edith Chilimo, who looks as though she has been beaten despite starting the race as the favorite to take this.
So the 3 athletes who are still in contention here in the race are approaching the finish line. Not many turns left on this course. They won't change roads. They're on Queen Elizabeth Drive. There's a curve in the road before they head to the finish line. But very soon we will be seeing first among the men and first among the women approaching the finish line. We just don't know in what order that will happen. Will it be Berta catching Mohammed, or will Mohammed hold off the lead man?
Keep an eye on the clock as well. The women's course record is 30.56 with Gladys Chirono. The men's course record has stood for 9 years to the Reba Merger, 27.24.
And on the men's Canadian side, Evan Esselink, who I mentioned earlier, a former training partner of mine, he's just pulled ahead of Kevin Blackney.
All right, we can see now that Berta is closing in on Mohammed. So that's Berta in the front, and that's Mohammed in the front, I should say, and Berta, who's just about to pass her now and head towards the finish line.
She just looked behind and she saw him.
She's been doing it constantly. I know it must be hard not to do that in the context of the race and the fact that we have got this 3-minute 40 gender gap. So many times she's been looking over her shoulder, Alia Mohammed, costing herself the distance. Well, last year,
and now she's looking.
Women hung on, but it's going to be the elite men this time with the honours.
This is a really good run.
She looked over her shoulder again there after Berta passed her, so now she's worried about whether she's going to be the top woman or not. Here comes Berta. What a sprint to the finish by Andam Lac Berta, the 19-year-old Ethiopian. Just a few meters to go now for both the men's title and the gender challenge at the Ottawa 10K. Andam Lac Berta is the winner. What a run. And now here comes Alia Mohammed, the top woman, just a few seconds later. I don't think we saw any course records broken, but 2 very good times.
2 excellent runs, not quite to be the course records. Chilimo takes second. What was that? 31.47 unofficially. Just waiting to see whether we'll get another elite woman home inside 32 minutes. Not to be this time.
So Rachel...
What a race here for the finish among the second, third, and fourth men to cross the finish line. We saw Kameli in that group and Ziani. And now we're going to have the next woman approaching the finish line, and it is Gladys Kamena. And then the American Thweet. And there's Rachel Cliff, who's going to capture the Canadian title.
In around 32.24. Very good time.
New PB on the roads, and that's in line with what she's been doing time and time again since the Commonwealth Games, where she finished just behind Natasha Wodak. Cliff's season continues to get better and better. PB on the track at 5,000 and 10,000, and now a lifetime best on the roads here. That was an absolutely brilliant run from Rachel Cliff.
Lots of excitement at the finish line as we see Andam Lac Berta win the men's race and also capture the gender challenge. Rachel Cliff, the Canadian women's champion. There's Abraham Kipyatic crossing the finish line.
Yeah, just coming home inside 29.5 minutes. It's been a brutal day for some of these men, partly because of that insane pace set at the beginning by Bernard Ngeno, who was very, very tired at the end.
There's Hisham Amgar of Morocco, who has just crossed the finish line. And now Berta at the finish line with the Ethiopian flag.
Eric, he is a very, very exciting young talent. When you bear in mind, he's still only 19. I thought he ran really well at the World Champs last year for 10th behind Mo Farah and all the best of the rest. A great performance from him. He's a young runner with great maturity.
Natasha Wodak has just crossed the finish line. Sorry, Art.
Just it's hard to believe he is 19, and yeah, I think with his consistency right now, really good things are in store for him. Looks like Evan Esselink, top Canadian.
Here he comes.
Good running from him. What was that, around 30:30? Got a half marathon PB of 64:08 at Houston. He was just outside the world's top 100 in the world half in Valencia.
They managed to get a Canadian flag to Evan Esselink, but they didn't manage to stretch the tape across for him to break as he crossed the finish line. But he is unofficially the Canadian champion. There are a lot of people doubled over at the finish line, one or two lying on the ground among these elite athletes who have just crossed. What does it feel like after you've just run your guts out, basically, Eric, in a 10K?
You really want to run hard down this finish line here, Mark, because of the crowds that are cheering, and you're just happy to be getting close, and you give it your all. And once you cross that line, you feel the burn.
And you just can't get enough oxygen in the next few seconds, right?
No, you feel tired, you feel hot, you just feel like you need to sit down.
And all the coaches tell you it's the worst thing you can do, but it's all you want to do when you've done a 5,000 on a track or a 10,000 or a 10K on the road. You are desperate to lie down and gasp for air.
That's true. Just continuing to walk is, I found, the best medicine.
Let's talk again about that finish, Rob. Very exciting to see Berta passing the women, picking them off one by one. And then I think it was perhaps with about 400 or 500 meters to go that he finally passed Alia Mohammed and then had a great sprint to the finish.
A really good run, especially when you bear in mind that he was facing a 3-minute 40 deficit. And actually, I think the fact that he had women to chase would have helped him, because undoubtedly he would have been hurting. Yeah, we know he's run 27:08 over 10,000 meters on the track, but that was a tough run for Berta. And I do think having those women to chase just gave him a little bit of added momentum. I also think it put Mohammed under pressure, because I counted at least 5 times where she looked over her shoulder. Now, I know it's tempting to do that. Every time you look behind, your momentum's going backwards instead of going forwards. But a great win for her as well, but she could really feel the pressure of the Ethiopian burning down on her.
Was that your charge that just made it across the finish line?
Yeah, that was Angus. Yeah, his first ever road 10K. He would be too pleased with that. He just had a great 2018 season, so now he'll take a well-deserved 6 weeks of unstructured training and have some good downtime.
Yeah, he was shaking his head at you as he crossed the finish line, unfortunately. It's always sad to see that. But
I think coming from Calgary, he didn't enjoy the humidity here.
Yeah. 20 years old, though, so still lots of upside.
Yep, tons.
Yeah. You can see more and more athletes making it across the finish line. And very soon, really, in the next 10 minutes, we're just going to see throngs and throngs of amateur runners crossing in 35, 40, 45 minutes. And then the bulk of the runners will start to come across in 55 minutes, 60 minutes, and so on. But these, among some of the elite athletes who have their names on their race bibs, there are some very accomplished and very fast amateur athletes who are just wearing numbers on their shirts. And we're seeing both joy and agony at the finish line here.
Well, anyone who comes home 33s, 34s, 35s for a man, that's a really decent club runner.
I'm seeing a lot of sweat on these runners. It feels cool to us standing at the finish line in our shirt sleeves, but there's a humidity, and obviously that's a factor for some of these runners, because I'm actually seeing a lot more sweat in their singlets than you might expect.
Yeah, big difference between racing a 10K and spectating a 10K.
For sure.
And with these temperatures, we're not used to this in Canada, coming in with just coming off our winter. So it takes a little while to kind of find our groove with this humidity and know our pacing and our body to get acclimatized to it. So people might be feeling it a little bit extra today.
Yeah, that's the dynamic with a spring event, is that you, especially if you're Canadian, you're training in the winter and then racing as the warmer temperatures arrive. It'll be like that for the marathon runners and for the amateurs as well, the amateur athletes who are competing tonight and tomorrow in the marathon and the half marathon. So that's an element that you have to contend with a spring event, whereas in the fall, of course, you can be training during warmer weather and then maybe it's cooler on race day.
That's always a nice... I've done that a few times training in Guelph, Southern Ontario with humid hot summers, and then got to race in cooler weather come September, October in Toronto.
We've just seen Angela Tanui cross the finish line in a wheelchair, so she obviously dropped off the course at some point and was helped out by the medical professionals here and brought across the finish line.
Yeah, and that shows you that perhaps the conditions were tougher than we had anticipated sitting under the shade of our studio position. And one other point that's always important to remember, people assume that East Africans are very comfortable in heat and humidity. They are in terms of heat, but nearly all of those training camps on both sides of the Rift Valley in Kenya and Ethiopia, it's dry heat. Unless you live down in Mombasa, where we had a sweltering edition of the World Cross back in '07, where people were being dunked in buckets of ice water to bring them round. Unless you're down in Mombasa, a lot of East Africans are not used to running in humidity. They're used to dry heat. And you'll know, Eric, from being around at the top of the sport for such a long time, is very, very different. A dry heat, yes, you get thirsty, but there's nothing more energy sapping than humidity.
There really isn't. I've raced in wind, I've raced in rain, and it's the humidity that gets me the most.
And you can see many of the athletes crossing the finish line, their shirts are completely drenched. It says something about the humidity tonight, because sometimes it takes a lot longer than that for you to be completely soaked on a run. A lot longer than 36, 37 minutes.
Yeah, and especially when you bear in mind that everybody coming in at this kind of time or quicker, these are decent club athletes. Yeah. They haven't just turned up and done no training. These men and women have arrived in shape, ready to go. Great support though from this vantage point. It's a snake on both sides of the road. It's fantastic to see so many people turning out for this 10K. It must be a proud moment for you, Mark. I know you help out with John Halverson and Manny Rodriguez. It's, this really is a genuinely world-class event. It's easier for me to say that because I come in as an outsider, but it is in terms of the organisation, in terms of the crowd supporting the event. This really is class.
Well, it's great for you to say that, Rob. We appreciate that. This is an event with a long tradition in Ottawa. It's been going on for more than 40 years, and a proud tradition. And there are so many volunteers who are deeply involved in this. Manny Rodriguez, who we've talked about, is a volunteer. So many of the people who are on the course during the event are volunteers. We have a terrific board that supports the staff, a very small staff of a handful of people, half a dozen people putting this event on, and several other events throughout the year as well. So this is a very proud moment when it all comes together on a night like this, and tomorrow morning for the marathon and the half marathon as well.
Well, I went to the official function. I think you were doing a show or something. I went to the official function last night where John Halverson made his typically brief speech. He's certainly a modest man, considering he's a two-time Olympian and a winner of the 10K on numerous occasions. I couldn't believe it when he confirmed there are only 5 full-time staff members on Run Ottawa, considering all that they do and the impact, in terms of the feel-good factor, in terms of the tourism, in terms of the publicity, in terms of the money raised for the city. For all that to come from a nucleus of 5 staff is staggering.
Yeah, it's a very hard-working team. All right, let's check in with Timothy Walker, who is standing by with the Canadian 10K champion, Rachel Cliff.
Well, we're
we're here with the Canadian champion. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, I noticed when you crossed, you turned around and immediately looked at the clock. What were you trying to achieve today?
I really wanted to break 32 minutes. I knew that was a kind of A-plus dream goal. It wasn't likely, but yeah, I was checking to see if I did, and I knew I didn't do it, but I was checking to see what the actual time was.
Yeah, our hosts were talking about how you just keep getting better and better. How are you feeling today?
Tired right now, but I felt pretty good. It was hot, but I felt strong from the start, so it was nice.
Yeah, it seemed to be heating up as the hour went along between 6 o'clock and well, now you guys obviously beat an hour, but...
Yeah, that's what I found last year. I think just it's like the course is hotter the second half with the water or something. I don't know.
What about the women out there? Because there was a lot of kind of moving and positioning out there. How was it with the pack?
Laura and I worked together kind of right from the get-go, and we both almost accidentally went out with the Africans, and I saw we were just over around 6 minutes at 2K, which is 30-minute pace for 10K, so we both kind of panicked and backed off after that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Thanks.
Congratulations to Rachel Cliff, the Canadian champion in the 10K at Ottawa Race Weekend. And what a run for her, and lots of upside in her career. Eric.
Rachel has been going for such a long time, and she's still really young. She had a great university career at Guelph, and has now transitioned to the roads and the longer stuff very well.
I had a question for you regarding Rachel. How significant do you think it was? Because I don't live here, I wasn't involved, or I don't know the internal politics of Canadian athletics. She was one of 3 women to produce a qualifying time in the 5,000 in Rio, and they chose not to take her. I wonder whether actually, now that she's done her masters, and she's training full time without any studies to have to do, I wonder whether that is actually turning into a very positive, burning motivation for her to ensure she gets on the plane to Tokyo. She seems to have handled that disappointment and bounced back from whatever reasons it was that she wasn't selected. She seems to have reacted to that in the right way.
Yeah, those are tough situations for athletes to go through, and you don't wish them upon them. That just real tough. But if she's able to come through and respond the way she has, it is a very good sign, Rob, for the future for her. And when she gets back into that situation again, going for those standards, she's going to be stronger for it.
We're seeing more and more runners cross the finish line. You can see the pack thickening as we approach 43 minutes now in the 10K. These are all still some very good amateur runners who are crossing the finish line here in under 45 minutes. That's an impressive time for anyone in a 10K race. All right, are we going back to Kimothy now to meet the top Canadian man, the Canadian champion in the 10K? Kimothy.
Here with the Canadian champion. We'll be fast because I know you're really thirsty. You gave it everything. You came across that finish line looking like you had just given it your all.
Yeah, absolutely, I did. I probably didn't feel as good as I thought I was going to feel through 5K. My attitude going into the race was go with the pack at 5K, let them do the work, and I did. And then I found myself at the front, which was kind of the plan, but then that front running got to me like 5 to 7K, and then Kevin Blackney guy came second. He's improved a ton, and he's one to look out for in the future. And he made it really hard on me. He took the lead and through that part, and then 1.5K to go, about an 8.5K. I didn't feel like taking it, but I didn't know what kind of kick he had today, and I knew that my kick is going to be a go in the front and then fade kind of thing.
Well, you surprised. They were so surprised that you were there so quickly. They didn't even get the tape out for you.
Oh yeah, yeah, which is ironic because the winner last year at Gillis, I think he was 25 seconds faster than me last year.
Yeah.
But he's a.
Well, he's in the commentating booth and says hi.
Yes, I haven't seen him in a long time and miss him a lot. But
all right.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
There you go. A little shout out to Eric Gillis from Evanesca Link.
I'm glad I got his name out at the start of the race, and
it's a good run for him.
I miss Evan too. He's a great guy. I'm glad to see him get the Canadian title there.
And I guess by saying he's missing you, he's referring to the fact that you're back in Nova Scotia now and not spending as much time in Ontario, right?
Yeah, no, I haven't been. I moved from Guelph to Nova Scotia back in August of last year, and I have not been back yet.
And what, if I may ask, again, from an outsider's point of view, we saw you run the New York half, and then you dropped out of that nightmare Boston Marathon. You weren't the only one. Is it the end of the road for you, or are you enjoying being a coach and an athlete now? Are you making any big decisions, or are you just seeing how the next year pans out?
Well, my plan was to run this 10K. I was going to keep training after Boston and then have a relaxing summer. But I got a cold, which turned into a sinus infection, and I decided my body needs a break. So I took a break, and now I'm still on a little bit of downtime, and my coach and I are going to chat early next month, about where I'm going from now and what I'm setting up, and if, So I am still at it. Just we'll have to... The official details of that still have to be worked out.
Watch this space, it sounds like.
Yeah. So you still consider yourself both a coach and an athlete then?
For the meantime. Yeah, okay. Yeah, for the meantime.
He's not giving much away here, is
no.
he?
It's super busy, so it's tough to get a fall marathon in the time that I normally would run a fall marathon because of the collegiate season. But I do have some ideas that I'm going to pitch to my coach about when I could run a potential marathon.
And how have you enjoyed the transition to coaching?
It's been great. It's been really good. Like, the day-to-day of coaching is way busier than being a professional Well, I'm trying to do two things at once here by being a professional athlete and a coach. But the interactions that I'm having with my athletes, honestly, they give me energy for the end of the day. I'm really enjoying that. I've been very lucky to have a fantastic group of athletes at St. FX to work with, both sprinters and jumpers, throwers and distance runners, and it's been a treat.
Good for you.
Yeah,
good
thank you.
It sounds like you're perfectly suited to that. You have a background in teaching as well, right?
I do, and it's now just to kind of be on this other side of this athletics while still being involved with it. It's a comforting feeling to know that, hey, I want to do this for the next 20, 30 years. I'm getting a good feel for it now, and I think I have the stamina.
Good for you. 2 Canadian men in the top 10 at the 10K Ottawa race weekend. Let's take a look at the unofficial results. And it was quite a finish for Andamlak Berta. And for a long time, Rob, we saw him running with Kimeli and then just broke away with a couple of kilometers to go.
Yeah, I think that's one of the surprising outcomes. We knew that Berta had class because he'd run under 60 minutes for the half, and I thought he ran really well at the 10,000 metres at the World Champs last year, but it was the manner in which he pulled away from Kimeli, who has at his best run 27:10. And Gaino did really well to hang on for a podium spot by a tenth of a second, just out-dipping Raider, the veteran from Morocco, sometimes better known as Al Arabi. He's been around a long time. And Ziani, the former winner, not able to get on the podium this time in 5th. But Esselink and Kevin Blackney coming in 9th and 10th. Blackney was performing just outside 30 minutes when he was 6th in Vancouver, so he's got another top 10. That's another good consistent run for him. 2 Canadians in the top 10. I think that's good going.
And look at how close 2nd, 3rd and 4th are. 1 second, less than a second separating the 2nd, 3rd and 4th athletes to cross the finish line on the men's side. All of them, though, more than 30 seconds behind Berta. So that ended up being a gap of 35 seconds in the end. That's quite a gap in a 10K race. But no course record set. Of course, just to remind you, the men's record, 27 minutes and 24 seconds. So Berta ended up being about 23 seconds behind that. But he does win the gender challenge as well. And I think considering the 3 minute and 40 second gap, Rob, that was quite a decisive win.
It was, because it wasn't a lunge for the line. And remember, Gabri Selassie just missed out by 8 seconds against Netzanet Kudeta last year. That was a really, really tough challenge. To put that up from 3:10 to 3:40, it was an indication that Manny Rodriguez believed this elite men's field was capable of low to mid 27s, and maybe you've got to make some allowances for the humidity. I mean, we've seen the likes of Tanui coming across the line in the women's race in a wheelchair. Hopefully she's okay. The humidity was obviously more of a factor than we anticipated, sitting in the luxury of the commentary position overlooking the finish line. I think that's still a great time from Berta, and I've got no doubt that as he felt tired towards the end, having those leading women there to chase really helped him. And I wonder whether this gender gap scenario will now begin to be reeled out at other big races, because this is one of only 4 10K gold label races anywhere in the world. It's a really unique element of the race, and I wonder whether it might catch on.
I can say I was definitely more interested in that race, like what was going on. I would look at, who was running fast, but I would also look at who was placing compared to men and women. And then we have the Canadians on top of that, which is icing on the cake for us here in Canada. But it was a very entertaining race.
Yeah, so many different races going on at the same time. Let's join Timothy Walker now with the winner of the men's race, Adam Lackberta.
All right. Well, congratulations. We're here with your interpreter. Did you know that you had enough gas in the tank to beat the woman?
እርግጠኛ ነበርኩ ወይ ሴቶቹን እንደምታሸንፍ በቂ ጋፕ ኖሮ ሴቶቹን እንደምታሸንፍ እርግጠኛ ነበርኩ ወይ?
መጀመሪያ እርግጠኛ አልነበርኩም። ያው ብቻዬን ሄደህ ስለማጨርሰው ግን ሲፈጥን ምናልባት እንደርሳለን የሚል ግምት ነበረኝ።
He said I wasn't sure at the first, but when we started the race quick, I was a bit confident that I would catch up with them.
And you're just at the beginning of your racing career. How do you feel today?
ያው የሙያ ወይ ደግሞ በሩጫው ዓለም ገና እየጀመርክ ነውና ዛሬ ምን ተሰማ?
ያው መጀመሪያ ፈጣሪና አመሰግናለሁ። በጣም ደስተኛ ነኝ። ያው ከዚህም እንደ መጀመሪያ መጠን ያው ደና ጥሩ ውጤት አመጣለሁ ብዬ አስባለሁ።
He said I am very happy. I want to thank God for that, and he said I will try to do more, and I'm very happy for now.
Congratulations.
እንኳን ደስ አለ።
አመሰግናለሁ።
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and there is a look at the women's finishing times, and we've got 5 Canadian women in the top 10, including Rachel Cliff finishing in 5th place. Very strong performance for her, and we saw Alia Mohammed holding off as long as she could Berta, who was the charging men's leader, but she wasn't able to do that. She still did win the race, and she is the one who emerged, Rob, from that group of 4 runners who were leading the pack for so long.
It was a really good run from Mohammed, because I think on paper the 27-year-old, the Ethiopian who represents the United Arab Emirates, I don't think she would have been the favourite for that. Edith Chilimo would have fancied it, and it's quite strange. Again, yes, the humidity notwithstanding, Chilimo went through 10K en route to a brilliant half marathon inside 31 minutes. So it's odd that with that kind of 10K split in a half marathon, it's strange that she still hasn't broken 31 minutes in a 10K proper. Kimena was very, very tired, and look at that. Thweet was only just off the podium. The Kenyan just hung on by just under a second and a half from Kimena, and Rachel Cliff, I think she'll be delighted with that. She's had a great season so far. She's building on 9th in the Com Games. Natasha Wodak was 5th, but I think in the 2 months that's transpired since the Gold Coast, Cliff has really, really upped her game. She must have had a great winter, and a great winter is becoming an excellent spring. It's going to be brilliant to see what she can do on the track.
As a Canadian distance fan, looking at that board right there and seeing in a gold label 10K race, seeing 5 Canadians in the top 10, that's really impressive to me. I'm delighted to see that on the women's side.
All right, our Timothy Walker is standing by with the women's winner, Alia Mohammed.
Well, congratulations. This was your first time in Canada, right?
Sure.
What a way to make an entrance.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. It's so nice place. It was good. I'm so happy. Like, first time I've been here, so I win so the rest, so I'm so happy.
Now you have to come back next year.
Yeah, sure, I will.
You were looking over your shoulder. Did you feel the men?
No, it's too much windy. A little bit after like 8K, I was like feeling my stomach. I just like watching back. Is she gonna catch me or no? That's why.
And so just at the very end, the men were catching up to you. Does that hurt your heart a little bit, or were you okay?
That didn't hurt me because this is my personal best. I did my personal best, so I'm so happy.
All right. Well, congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you.
Alia Mohammed, the women's winner, acknowledging that she was worried about whether she'd end up winning this race, was looking over her shoulder, had some stomach issues in the final couple of kilometers of the race, as can happen in a tough 10K race on a humid day. that can happen to some of the runners. But I want to come back to Berta's run, Rob, because I think that was a very well-executed 10K. He didn't take the bait when Engano went out early. Ran a smart race, held back, eventually passed him, made his move at the right point in the race, obviously, and then reeled in all of the lead women to take the gender challenge as well as the men's title. Very good tactical awareness, considering, I know we've mentioned it a couple of times, but you don't often see maturity of that extent for someone who's still a teenager. He plotted his way through that race beautifully. He was alongside Bernard Camelli once Engano had been dragged back to them, was quite comfortable to be alongside him, but, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, Eric, when he made his move, he made it decisively. He wasn't, it wasn't one where he was a little bit unsure. He was obviously certain of how he felt, and when you're going to make a move, it has to be decisive, because if you're half-hearted about it, that's when the guys behind you can suddenly think, hang on a minute, he's gone, but he's still there. He broke a man who's run quite a lot faster than him on the roads. I thought it was a really, really mature run.
That's the best way to do it, is when you're going to make your move, you make it decisive, you make it strong, and you don't look back. Yeah, but you're always asking that question, right? You lay it out there, you throw down the gauntlet, you charge ahead, and then you're asking a question of yourself and of the other athlete at the same time, and you don't know what the answer is sometimes for a few hundred meters, right? Yeah, it's a guessing game out there. Absolutely, you're right. You're already on that line in terms of your ability out there. You're pushing hard for a long time, and to ask yourself, your body to pick it up after that, you don't always know what's going to happen. So it worked well for him today. Lots of runners still crossing the finish line behind us in the sunshine now. This is not something we expected when we were looking at the weather forecast a few days ago. The forecast had been calling for rain today and tomorrow, but it's turned into a beautiful night here in Ottawa. A little more humid, as we've talked about. A little more humid than most of the runners would like, but not to an unmanageable level. And we are expecting now, the last forecast I checked a few hours ago, the hour-by-hour forecast for tomorrow morning was very similar conditions. Again, not as much rain as had originally been in the forecast, so many runners will be pleased about that. And it may not be as hot and as humid as it has been for some editions of the Marathon at Ottawa Race Weekend at the end of May over the last few years. So we have a lot to look forward to tomorrow. The men's and women's marathon will start at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Our coverage here on Rogers TV and at runottawa.ca will begin at 6:30. The kids' marathon is tomorrow at 8, and the half marathon will start tomorrow at 9. Looking forward to all of the coverage tomorrow. It's going to be a very interesting day. We've got some great athletes competing in the marathon tomorrow, and we'll be telling you all about it. Hope you will be able to join us, and want to say congratulations to all of the people who participated in the 10K tonight, as well as the 5K and the 2K that were earlier. And good luck to those of you who are at home right now, resting up for the half marathon and the marathon tomorrow. Get a good night's sleep. Be ready to go early tomorrow morning. We'll look forward to seeing you here at Ottawa Race Weekend. Eric, thank you for being part of our coverage. We'll see you tomorrow. It's a lot of fun. Looking forward to tomorrow. Rob, we'll see you in the morning.
Yep, halfway there. Looking forward to the next installment.
And we will see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining us for our coverage of Ottawa Race Weekend here on Rogers TV.